coming at ya, coming at ya. Rhyme style disaster, coming at ya.
Hey everyone, welcome to Outspoken. This is season 2, episode 8. I am so excited, y'all. We have done so many good episodes this season. I feel like this has been the best because we really have hit the root of some deep topics and also current topics. One big thing today is the polyamory, families of polyamory, also raising children as polyamory, and also being throuples and couples for same gender loving, and also for people who are two women and a man. So joining us first, before we get to those families, is someone who is very well known for her studies in polyamory, and also a genius in her research as it comes to polyamory and raising a family polyamory. So Dr. Eli Sheff is joining us on Dr. Eli, how are you doing?
I'm doing good, Nigel. Thanks so much for having me. I'm thrilled to be here on Outspoken. Thanks for inviting me.
No, thank you, guys. This woman is truly amazing. She has been on so many media outlets speaking on this topic, and she has really been at the forefront, especially when it comes to polyamorous families raising children, and created a whole guide. And I just want to say, on behalf of the LGBT community, thank you for making contributions. Because I think with our community, we don't understand how something works, or we're the first generation to really talk about things. But you start creating this guide, especially through numerous of your books, and it helps, and it causes conversations.
Well, thank you so much. And I really appreciate that. And it's really important to, I think, recognize that there are significant overlaps between the LGBT community and people who practice consensual non-monogamy. Not that gay people are the only folks, or bi or trans or whoever. Other, heterosexuals also practice consensual non-monogamy. But as with so many things, the gay people have been the front runners.
Right. We're always the trend starters. Everybody just follows
vanguard.
So Dr. Eli, how did you even get on this topic of doing your research on this? Are you in a polyamorous relationship yourself?
That's such a good question. I would say that I'm in a polymono relationship where my wife is polyamorous. And I'm monogamous. I intellectualize things that frighten me, and had a partner who wanted to be non-monogamous. And I just didn't, when he said that to me, I heard, which many non-monogamous people hear, if their partner wants other lovers, they're like, oh, does that mean there's something wrong with me? So I heard, I'm too fat and I'm bad in bed. And it's not what he meant. He told me over and over, that's not what he meant. But I intellectualized it, thought, well, if I could just study this, maybe it wouldn't be so frightening. And things didn't work out really with he and I. He did some things that heterosexual men routinely do in consensual non-monogamy.
Oh, no.
Yes, unfortunately. But apparently I just have a thing for, I think it's the freedom in non-monogamous relationships, that even though I'm like, once I'm in love with someone, I'm a very monogamous person. I have a monogamous heart, but my head is non-monogamous. I can totally understand why people want multiple partners. I just don't have that desire. I mean, when I'm not in love, sure. You, your sister, her friend, all of us all together, no problem. But when I'm in love, I just have no desire for everyone else. And that's really, at least for me, and hearing from my respondents many times, that people are wired for monogamy or consensual non-monogamy. Not everyone. I think there are people who are in the middle, but some people are at one end of that spectrum and can't really change it. If you are wired for non-monogamy, it really doesn't matter how hard you try to be monogamous. You can maintain it for a little while, but as a very long-term strategy, it comes with a terrible cost. And I have found when you try to be non-monogamous, but you are monogamous, that also comes at a cost, unfortunately.
So, Dr. Eli, in doing your research, how were you able to find the data on monogamous, I'm sorry, polyamorous couples, throuples, and also polyamorous families? How did you do the interviews? How did you sweep the nation and find out this information that is helping a lot of throuples and polyamorous families who are raising children today?
Initially, I approached the community as what I think of as a civilian, more like, my partner wants to do this. I don't know how to even feel about this. I don't know what to think about it. So I hung out with them for a good 2 years at least before I asked if I could start interviewing them. And I think that really helped me establish kind of an excellent repertoire with people, that I wasn't there to kind of get something from them initially. They really got to know me before I started wanting to interview them. And that was I was training as an ethnographer at the University of Colorado in Boulder. And that training dovetailed with being able to have access to that community. And then I decided to look around a little more because, well, Boulder is a very white place. And so I was finding a lot of white people practicing polyamory. So, and this was probably 1996. So I went to California in probably 2001. By then I was like, y'all are super white. Is there anyone else doing this? And in 2001, in the Bay Area, the people who were willing to talk to a researcher, again, were mostly white. And it really helped me to realize that social privileges, especially race privilege, but also class privilege, helps people to be out if they're polyamorous. And that for people who might get fired, might lose their kids or their housing, coming out as polyamorous can be very dangerous, even to a researcher who would protect your identity. That plus, how would they know that I wouldn't judge them as a white person to kind of come up with more reasons to look down on people of color? Like, is in this very racist country, I think people of color often don't feel safe telling white people things that white people could use against them.
Yeah, I totally agree. I feel like in this construct, when there's something foreign that is approached or come about to people of society, they feel that it's new. And polyamory is nothing new. Even in biblical times, they've even talked about people having more than one spouse as long as you are able to take care of them.
Well, polygyny is nothing new. One husband with multiple wives, that has been in every society we can find. If you are a wealthy and powerful man, you get multiple lovers, every time, everywhere. Women, however, have not had access to multiple partners very much. There's a special word for that. Polyandry is one woman with multiple husbands, and that's pretty rare historically and contemporarily in cultures around the world. So I think polyamory and other forms of kind of gender neutral consensual non-monogamy, where anyone could do it, people of any gender can jump right in, That's new, and that really relies on women being able to control their own reproduction, being able to make money, get an education, control their money, choose their own partners, especially if women can't choose their own partners and you have multiple partners, it's polygyny.
Mm.
Women only get polyamory when we can make our own choices and control our own lives.
Oh, wow. So we've come so far.
Absolutely.
So in your new
Not
book,
far enough, though, I have to say.
we still have some growth to do.
More to go.
So in your new book, Children in Polyamory Families, how did this come about? And why did you even decide to write a book? And I think is one of its own kind out there. Is that correct?
Yes, well, I'm the only one who's done research on people having children and children growing up in polyamorous families. Outside of, there was a researcher in Australia, Dr. Maria Pallotta Chiaroli, who looked at children's experiences in schools.
Oh, wow.
This book covers more kind of experiences with families and parents' partners, and how experiences of a polyamorous family differ by the age of the child, because how that child is developmentally has a big impact on what they think of the adults around them and how that works. So this book is mostly a product of my fourth wave of data collection in the longitudinal polyamorous family study that I started in 1996.
Oh, wow.
So some of the children in the family in this study I met when they were preschoolers, and now they're graduating from college, which is pretty cool, starting their own families. Some of them have had babies. It's really sweet.
That is awesome. So what is the importance behind this book and behind this data? Like I said before, a guide has never really been created for people to look back as a reference. So what does this book actually mean for a lot of families?
I think having research that people can point to makes a huge difference, because so many people are very concerned about sex and gender minorities having children. They feel like, oh no, well, won't you mess up your children? Like, what about the children? Will you make them gay? Will you make them polyamorous? And people never ask that of heterosexuals. But most of the gay people who are here now were raised in families captained by heterosexuals. We come from heterosexual families. And similarly with polyamorous people, they are often raised in, I do have a couple third generation polyamorous folks actually, but mostly the parents' generation in my research is the first generation, and the children are deciding whether they want to be, what they want to be.
Monogamous, yes. Oh, wow. So when children are born, and I think you would agree with me, they're born without beliefs. They're born without a certain mindset. They're born without prejudice. You
I would
say
agree.
your data from ages 0 to 8 years old to when a child is born in a polyamorous family, they just see a family. They don't see what other people see, that something is actually different.
Absolutely. They just take their family for granted. Or if they notice there's a difference between their family and other people's families, it's more of a deficit on the other people's family. Like those kids in those families with only two parents, they don't get as many birthday presents. They don't have as much attention. They don't have as much people willing to take them and do fun things. So when a child in a polyamorous family notices other families, it's usually more like, oh, they don't get the loot that I get as a kid from a polyamorous family. I'm raking it in, and my peers don't have 9 or 12 grandparents.
Right. It's like if your parents divorce, but they start two separate families, and everyone is just like, okay, I get gifts and presents from dad and stepmom, and I get gifts and presents from mom and stepdad. I get more.
Totally. Absolutely.
So what about elementary school? You said that's when they start to see that other families are different from theirs.
And there's this common thing in polyamorous families that a kid will come home with big news. You guys, check it out. They only have 2 parents in that household. Aren't they wacky? Like children in elementary school, they do notice differences, but it doesn't mean as much to them. I think you're absolutely correct when you say kids aren't born with those kinds of prejudices or expectations or something. So they don't make it mean anything big, to them. They're just like, yeah, whatever. And it's not that hard to hide from their peers if they don't want to talk about it. Because a lot of people have multiple parents right now because just like you said before, you've got mom and dad breaking up, then mom gets married to her new husband and dad gets married to his new husband. And all of a sudden, you've got 4 parents and it's not a polyamorous family.
Correct.
But polyamorous families can just blend in with all the other blended families.
Awesome. Now, what about that preteen and teen age when we're at the age we're trying to figure things out? We're learning about our bodies, but trying to figure things out here at home, at school, but also trying to not be picked on, not be bullied. Have you heard from preteens or teenagers who grew up in those polyamorous families who say, they're really making it hard for me at school. I'm getting bullied. They're talking about me. They're talking about you. How do families help navigate? Because sometimes kids can be cruel.
Absolutely. And I think that's one of the things that is different for polyamorous families versus lesbian or gays, their kids. Because polyamorous families just aren't that recognizable. If you see 2 men with their stroller and their dog, you're like, oh, those are gay dads taking their kid to the park. They're recognizable as a family. If you see 3 people having lunch together, even if you know that polyamorous families exist, probably polyamorous triad is pretty far down on the list of things you're going to think of. So in terms of managing it with their peers, even into middle school and high school, the children from polyamorous families don't have that much issue, not like other more recognizably different families. I would say when they're preteens or tweens, that they can easily distract their friends. One of my respondents called it, look shiny. All she had to do was be like, look over there, like just to bring something up. And her peers, when you're 12,
are easily distracted.
And for teens, they would either negotiate sleepover supremacy. So if the teens are having friends over, they're like, the rest of all y'all, you got to have like somewhere else to go because I get the house tonight with my teenage posse. Or like they go out, and this was easier when it wasn't COVID, I have to say, but pre-COVID, these teens would go meet their friends at the park, at the movies, at the mall. It was not that unusual to not have people over. So it just wasn't, unless they were in a small school, especially like a private school or some kind of smaller school where there aren't that many students to blend into. And then it does become more noticeable, and it can be a major bummer for the kids if they have to explain, who is this extra person who keeps picking you up from your lacrosse game? Who are these 6 people at your soccer game? That can be a bummer, definitely.
Gotcha. Guys, we are here with Dr. Eli Sheff. She is giving us some amazing information, an amazing look into her research on polyamorous families. Now we're going to go to a quick commercial, but when we come back, we're going to introduce 2 polyamorous families. One who is a family that's actually raising a child, and the other is a same-sex loving throuple. of men. We'll be right back after this commercial.
It's time to step up, prep up.
Step up, prep up.
To help keep you free from the risk of HIV.
From the makers of Truvada, there's another PrEP option, Descovy for PrEP, a once-daily prescription medicine that helps lower the chances of getting HIV through sex. It's not for everyone. Descovy for PrEP has not been studied in people assigned female at birth. Talk to your doctor to find out if it's right for you.
Step up for health and body.
Prep up for your one and only love, or many loves. For kings, this queen, and you royals in between. For my now.
Our now.
And my future.
Our future.
Step up, prep up.
Descovy is another way to prep. Descovy does not prevent other sexually transmitted infections, so it's important to use safer sex practices and get tested regularly. You must be HIV negative to take Descovy for PrEP, so you need to get tested for HIV immediately before and at least every 3 months while taking it. If you think you were exposed to HIV or have flu-like symptoms, tell your doctor right away. They may check to confirm you are still HIV negative. Serious side effects can occur, including kidney problems and kidney failure. Rare life-threatening side effects include a buildup of lactic acid and liver problems. The most common side effect was diarrhea. Tell your doctor about all the medicines and supplements you take, or if you have kidney or liver problems, including hepatitis. If you have hepatitis B, do not stop taking Descovy without talking to your doctor. Ask your doctor about your risk of HIV, and if Descovy for PrEP is right for you.
Words are loud, but actions are louder.
Step up.
Prep up.
With Descovy for PrEP.
Get help paying for Descovy for PrEP. Learn more at stepupprepup.com.
Rhyme style disaster coming at ya.
Back to Outspoken. Joining me is Dr. Eli. Again, welcome, Dr. Eli.
Hi.
As some of you, if you joined us late, Dr. Eli, she specializes in polyamory and polyamorous families who are raising children. She has written several books, has appeared on major media outlets. She is the go-to person, I would say, and we're just so happy to have her here. Now, joining me and Dr. Eli would be two throuples. First, let me introduce Louis, Katie, and Raquel, who is known as the Triad family. Welcome, Triad family. How are you?
Hi.
Hello. Hello.
Thank you for having us.
No problem. So I'm guessing you guys found a babysitter for tonight for the show.
Actually, no, we put Lucas down like right when we went on to testing our audio with you.
Gotcha.
I was like, Lucas, it is bedtime. We're on crunch time. Mamas and dad are gonna go downstairs and like talk with some friends. And yeah, no, it was fine.
Oh, wow.
We did it rushed, but we did it.
For you to be able to put down a little kid at what time is it? What, 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock? That's impressive.
I think they're frozen.
Yeah, little kids go to bed early, which is one of the saving graces for adults who are like, oh, adult time. Not that they don't love their children. You know, adults totally love to hang out with their kids, but once that kid goes to bed, it's a nice break.
I totally get it. Well, I don't have children, but I will. But I need to take some notes from the Triad family because apparently they know what to do, Dr. Eli. Now, also joining us is another throuple, Ty, Quint, and Martell. They are a same-sex loving African-American couple. And they're going to also explain to us their story. And here they are right now. Ty, Q, Martell, how are you guys doing?
Good. How are you?
I am doing awesome. Thank you guys so much. Triad family, are you with us?
Yes, we're here.
Awesome. Okay, guys, let's jump right into it. Ty, Q, Martell, I want you guys to start. How did you guys meet? How did you guys become a throuple? Who was with who first, and then who introduced who to who? How did it all start?
If I may, these two have been together for 8 years, 7 years. They've been together for 7 years already.
Oh, congratulations!
They plotted on me.
Okay, that's not what
happened. they stalked me for my fame, and they were like, "That's the one." And
it didn't exactly happen like that.
Q, how did it happen? Tell the truth. You were like the truth teller in the throuple.
Okay, so well, like I said, me and Ty have been together for 7 years. We met in the club in Tallahassee, and then started talking on Facebook after that. And so we met Martell last year, April 5th, to be exact. We were talking on Jack, which is online gay chat site. Me and him were talking, and then I found out that him and Bay were also conversing, and they had already swapped numbers. So, plus Martell had on his profile where his two boyfriends at. So, we kind of just got together, hung out, chilled, and then it kind of went from there.
Here we are.
Martell, what made you say yes? A lot of people would have been like, I don't know, maybe, but what made you say yes to joining and becoming a throuple?
Well, for me, I've done this before. So I was initially in a polyamorous relationship back in 2012. It was a great situation. It was just with the wrong people. We weren't all together perfect for each other. So it just didn't work out. And I've always said, like, eventually I want to get back into a polyamorous relationship. I would love to have, 2 boyfriends, because me alone, I'm just a lot for one person to handle. Or one by themselves, we just couldn't do it. But, as a team, we all can work and help build.
Oh, guys, it takes 2.
It takes 2.
Louie, Katie, Raquel, again, guys, welcome. I just love your beautiful family, and I follow you, and I've seen your show, your episode on this YouTube show, and I kind of already feel like I'm a part of the family. Quadruple.
That's good to feel. I mean, that's good to know that's the energy that's being felt on the other end of the screen, because I think that's definitely our intention, is just for that good energy and to show that not every single polyam family looks
the same.
Like ours it just so happens to be Christian, which is a whole other gamut of of information that we could talk about. But I mean, I think that's great that that's what you feel.
Yes, and I know how you met, but can you guys also describe how you met? I know Katie and Louie, you guys are married first, and then Raquel, you came in dating Katie, who was bisexual.
I shook their world in 2012. No, I'm just kidding. Katie and I, we met at a baby shower. She was the photographer, and I was there, to go celebrate my friend. And I see Kate. I was sitting at a table with a friend, and Katie just comes up and says the funniest thing, I have a hole in my sweatshirt, and puts her finger out, and I just start dying of laughter. And I was like, oh my God, who is this? And mind you, there was no second intention there. It was purely who is this person? She has such different energy than anyone I've ever come across. Who is this? Who is this human? And we hit it off really well. We instantly clicked and became friends, and we were best friends for 2 years before anything happened.
I mean, we were all church people, like I mentioned, and
we spent every weekend together.
And me and Louis were both musicians in church, and we had Raquel coming to church with us. So it was there really wasn't any sort of oh, who is that? I'm interested in that person at all. It was more of, somehow we hit it off and we're cool and we're really tight. And that's not uncommon for me. I feel like I have that a lot with different people. I have really deep, not romantic, but very deep, loving relationships just across the board. That's just how I am. So it wasn't any different, I think, to see me having a deep relationship with Raquel. So I think after that was just we were at a bar. Isn't it always at a bar?
It was my 21st birthday. Yeah, no. So my friend, we were at the bar and she's like, Raquel, this guy says he's going to give us a free drink if we kiss. And I was like, ooh, free drink. Okay, let's do it. And we kissed and I got my drink and, there was no physical connection between me and my friend who had kissed for the drink. And I like run away with my drink and Katie witnessed the whole thing. She was like, what was that? And I go and I look, oh my God, I just kissed her. It means nothing. See? And I instantly go in to kiss Katie. And it was like, you just instantly felt this shift in energy, this connection. And it was just like, oh, okay, no, this definitely felt like something. And we both took a step back. And that's when we realized like, okay, this just wasn't a kiss. And she immediately went and told Lewis.
Yeah.
And it just went from there.
I mean, it was a little bit of a shock at first, but at the same time, I already knew Katie was, bisexual. Even before we got married, we had already been married for many years at that point.
We had been married for 7 years.
7 years at that point. But even before, marriage, I already knew this about Katie. And I just, was taken back a little bit. But at the same time, I was like, Katie and Raquel, they really hit off this really strong connection. I see it. And I also, like Raquel as well. Like, she was my friend. And like, I don't know, like, let's see where this goes.
I know you weren't complaining, Lewis. I feel like
I was not complaining either. Yeah. But this was strictly between Katie and Raquel. Like, I was not involved at all. I was just kind of like, I felt happy for them, and I still, had my relationship with Katie. We were still like really close. And
so
like,
Katie, Raquel was your girlfriend while you were married.
Yeah. So we definitely were a V in the beginning. And that's where I'm in the middle. And I had two separate relationships. For those that don't know what a V is, I was in two romantic relationships that did not connect. And that was the way it was for a couple of years,
like 3 years.
Yeah. Before, they started to have feelings for one another, because that even took time, I think, to develop. But yeah, I mean, it was difficult to manage and navigate that in the beginning. And I was the one who was really pushing for like, hey, like, because it became a lot, just having to navigate two completely separate sets of emotions, two completely different sets of like just existing in the world. Like Lewis has a different way of being. Raquel has a different way. She has different needs. He has different needs. And I had to meet both of them.
I'm very needy.
So it just felt like a lot to juggle. And I think when, they decided to kind of come into attempting to have a romantic relationship, that's kind of where things kind of start feeling not as heavy. It just felt like a lot of work.
So Raquel, Martel, I have a question for you too. And it is funny that it takes two. Both of you guys say you're needy, but it takes two.
Yes.
So Raquel, Martel, are you guys boyfriends or do you consider yourselves partners? How are you titled after being the third coming into the relationship?
So, I think was that question for?
It was for both of you, but Raquel, you can start.
Oh, okay, cool. So I think like I've always been their partner, their girlfriend. That's how I've always been labeled as. I think it's not been till recently that I've been labeled as their girlfriend. I think we always just stuck with partner because in the beginning we were a V dynamic and it was a lot to go into and to having to explain the V dynamic. And so we were just like, you know what, we're just each other's partners, which in reality is the truth, and we just always stuck with that. And then once we transitioned to a throuple dynamic, I became their girlfriend. So.
Gotcha. And what about you, Martel?
For me, I think I just say boyfriend. I like being a boyfriend. I like that phrase. I like being able to say like my boyfriend, or if someone's saying like, if they're talking about me and they're saying my boyfriend, like I like that. I like the way that sounds. I'm a boyfriend.
So staying on you, Ty, Marcel, and and Q, has being a part of the LGBTQ African American community, there's a lot of judgment. A lot of people who talk, if they are not doing the same thing you're doing, they always have something to say to add their sense. Have you guys ever had any pushback or have any naysayers from the African American Black gay community about being a throuple?
So, luckily I haven't met that like around like family or anything like that, but it's normally, I'm very open about the kind of relationship that I'm in. So, you know, my coworkers know, like friends know, and it's always when I'm just having like open conversation and I mention the point that, you know, oh, I have a husband and, you know, we have a boyfriend and, you know, we get into that whole thing. And it's normally someone's always in the background that's like, oh, I just couldn't imagine doing that, or it's just not for me. Or they immediately jump to like, it's a sexual thing. And then it's like, but I love having that conversation because I feel like that's my chance to, you know, sit down and educate someone on just in general, like, well, it's a whole dynamic to it. Everyone works differently, you know, not every polyamorous couple is the same. I know, like, though, within the African American community, it's been, my experience has been very accepting, but I know like it's not really a conversation or a topic that many people talk about, or it's something that's really accepted. So I'm just thankful that it's been very easy for us on our end.
Awesome. Dr. Eli, do you ever get data or research from same-sex throuples or polyamorous families that say it's almost like a second coming out? Because one thing you're gay, and now next thing I have three of us.
Absolutely. And I think both families have made such a good point that people get, like, non-polyamorous people get really obsessed with the sex part. And the sex is like that much of it. The vast majority of it is talking about feelings and figuring out who's picking up the groceries and deciding, you know, what to do about the snoring. It's not a constant orgy. Not that the sex can't be fun. Yay, sex. Yay, consensual, fun sex. But it's not the central issue around these families. Kind of, it's not their North Star. Sexuality is just a fun condiment.
Right. And going off of what the Triad family were saying, where you have to really think about everyone within this relationship. You're thinking about two extra people. How, starting with you, Triad family, how did you handle not being jealous that someone was spending more time with the other one? How do you spend an adequate enough time, one, as a throuple, and two, as one-on-one, getting to know each person individually and having that personal relationship?
Yeah. Who wants to take that? I
just think that the dynamic shifts all the time. And I think it comes down to like the communication, right? We're constantly communicating with one another and we're hearing what each other needs. And I think that in this group, at least, it's constantly asking, what do you need? And trying to meet that person there. So when we were a V, let's say, for instance, let's say Lewis had a bad day. And the way we had arranged it in the beginning was I had 2 nights with Raquel, and then I had 2 nights with Lewis. And then we had one night where it was the 3 of us, you know, and it wasn't necessarily, like I said, about the sex. It was more of just time with one another. Pillow time was, you know, something that all couples do and need. So it was like having time with Lewis and having time with Raquel. And there were some times where Lewis had a bad day, or sometimes Raquel had a bad day and they needed me. And the other would understand. I can remember plenty of times where you would say, no, go be with Louis, he needs you. Or you go be with Rax, she needs you. And I think it's just the constant communication. So it never really stayed the same. It was constantly shifting. There was also a moment where Lewis needed to, you know, have some time to himself, you know, because he was going through his bout of depression, and giving him space to process. And, you know, it just shifts. And I think hearing each other out, listening to one another, checking in all the time to make sure everyone's good was like like top priority. Like that was the only way that we could figure out, because just assuming that Lewis is fine, or that Raquel is fine, or even if I'm fine, because I had to also get used to, I mean, for a long time I was a V. I was the one getting all the attention, you know, and then suddenly it shifts. And now they're in this, you know, the early stages of love where it's obsession almost. Like it's like this new love that you feel for one another. I had to deal with that and I was not ready. And I mean, that even took us to make sure we had a third party involved, like we have a therapist, because we wanted to make sure that, you know, the unit was expressing exactly how it was feeling and what it was feeling, and there being a third person to be objective and to be able to kind of just bounce and mirror things to make sure we're all on the same page. That's, I mean, I think it shifts, I think, to answer your question.
Awesome. You guys have it all the way planned out. I mean, you had 8 or 9 years.
Yeah, I mean.
Just to tag off Katie a bit too. I think it also takes a sense of like discerning each other's energy, right? And discerning like how it is that you're feeling. Because there were plenty of times, especially in the beginning, where I would say, no, I'm fine. And really, like, I was a jealous mess because Katie and Lewis were having time together and I was feeling left out.
Right.
And so I think it also took a lot of soul digging, like digging within myself and understanding what it is that I'm feeling and what it is that I need at this moment. You know, why am I feeling so triggered? Why am I feeling not enough? You know, and just kind of
unpacking that.
Yeah, peeling back the layers, you know, and just giving space for myself to understand myself more and learn about myself more. And I think the more that each of us did that, the more cohesiveness there was and the less jealousy there was.
Yeah, I think self-awareness and self-knowing for sure. I think all of us try really hard to just be self-aware and see what it is that we're feeling in the moment and what it is that we need.
Yeah, that's true. I definitely learned a lot after, I think not until like maybe year 3, 4 of us being together did I really start to like really learn to open up and start talking about my feelings and really expressing my feelings, not just holding it in and letting it blow up at some inappropriate time.
Because we dealt with a lot of that in the beginning.
It usually take us a while, right?
Yeah.
Hi, Q, Martel, what about you guys? How did you find a way to spend that adequate amount of time together? How did you, one, spend it together as a couple and also one-on-one?
I'll start. Okay. So when we initially started, the very first time we obviously spent time together, it was the 3 of us. And almost immediately from there was we went to building individual relationships. I knew for me coming outside in, I wanted to make sure that I gave both of them an adequate chance to really build that relationship with me, and of course me with them, because of course they already had their relationship. They've been together for forever. So even I know too. I think initially there would be times where I'm like, they would leave like, oh, like, all right, I love you, babe, and be like, all right, bye, Martel. And it's like, well, shit. But yeah, I think I also be like, okay, well, they've also been together for like 47 years. So in which case, they're obviously going to have different emotions for each other than they would for me. And I think I know too, I'm real big. We need to communicate. We have to talk all the time. Like I'm real, like I need y'all to know what's going on, because that if y'all know, then y'all can't, you know, we can't talk, we can't say nothing else because y'all knew already. So I really wanted to ensure that they knew how I felt. And I wanted to make sure that, you know, I always wanted to make sure I was included. I didn't want to feel like, oh, it's, you know, it's their boyfriend, but like we're husbands and that's our boyfriend. And they've done like an amazing job at making sure that we are all very much a unit. So I don't feel like just, you know, I'm just their boyfriend. Like I very much am. Like we're all like, obviously they're husbands, but like we're all boyfriends. We're all a cohesive unit. And that's super, like, it's super important to me and us. It's super important to us.
Martel, I'm going to call you their spokesperson.
This is also what I do for like a living. So like, I'm a talker.
For me, I think that it's good that we have different work schedules. So Ty works overnight, and I work Thursday to Monday, basically. He works Monday through Friday. So we get to spend, me and him get to spend time together at night. And, you know, we spend time together during the day, and they spend time together on the weekends because I'm at work. So we all have that time to spend separately and together with each other.
Wow, you guys have a whole schedule planned. Is it an actual schedule somewhere you now?
So we actually move into a new place together this weekend.
Okay. Oh, congratulations.
Yeah, thank you so much. But I am a super organized person. Like I'm like in the real, like, okay, the chart, like, okay, here are the chore days, here's how we do the bills, like here's how we do this, that way. But again, if we all know, knowing like at least we're all on our toes, we're all ready to go.
Thank you guys so much. All right, guys, we're going to go to a quick commercial, and we'll be back with more with Martell, Q, Ty, the Triad family, and Dr. Eli. Stay tuned.
For people living with HIV, keep being you and ask your doctor about Biktarvy. Biktarvy is a complete one-pill, once-a-day treatment used for HIV in certain adults. It's not a cure, but with one small pill, Biktarvy fights HIV to help you get to and stay undetectable. That's when the amount of virus is so low, it cannot be measured by a lab test. Research shows people who take HIV treatment every day and get to and stay undetectable can no longer transmit HIV through sex.
Serious side effects can occur, including kidney problems and kidney failure. Rare, life-threatening side effects include a buildup of lactic acid and liver problems. Do not take Biktarvy if you take dofetilide or rifampin. Tell your doctor about all the medicines and supplements you take if you are pregnant or breastfeeding, or if you have kidney or liver problems, including hepatitis. If you have hepatitis B, do not stop taking Biktarvy without talking to your doctor. Common side effects were diarrhea, nausea, and headache.
If you're living with HIV, keep loving who you are and ask your doctor if Biktarvy is right for you.
Rock-style disaster coming at you.
Hey guys, welcome back to Outspoken. Dr. I would love to just ask you a question. So do you believe that throuples or polyamorous families, that they really need to have that conversation or rules, regulations, boundaries before entering into a throuple or a polyamorous relationship?
That's a great question. I think both triads have done a great job of talking about things. Communication is probably the key element in consensually non-monogamous relationships. You know, they've both talked about talking about expectations and feelings, and that is so smart in terms of being able to foresee difficulties you might have and talk about them before they blow up. Yes. Or even if they do blow up, being able to talk through them and establishing this sense of kind of goodwill, like it's all three of them against the issue and not this fighting with each other. And that makes a huge difference.
Better than couples.
Yes, absolutely. Like a happy, resilient relationship is founded on communication and goodwill. And I got to say, these two triads have nailed it.
Awesome, guys. You got the A+ gold star from Dr. Eli. So I would love to talk on the topic of religion. Triad family, we're going to start with you with this question. In your video, you really talk about how you guys were a part of the Pentecostal church. You talked about how when they found out about your family, they were not that welcoming. They even told you to go to same gender loving type of church that was within your community. Can you talk more about your experience with the Pentecostal church?
Yeah, I can take this one. Well, I guess we can always just drive off each other. So Katie and Lewis, well, we all grew up in fundamentalist Christian homes. Katie and Lewis both grew up in the Pentecostal church. I grew up in Assemblies of God, and also went to a Pentecostal church in my high school years. So faith was always such an important aspect of our lives and continues to be an important aspect of our lives. Katie and Lewis were very prominent
We're just really involved.
Yeah.
We're just really involved in music and in leading, like youth,
mentoring,
events.
Yeah, mentoring. We were just very involved in our Latino Pentecostal community.
Yeah.
And when you came out, we were already at a non-denominational church.
Yeah, like we had already been seeking for a while, trying to find like a different place that could probably, be home, somewhere progressive. And we landed at this non-denominational church.
And the church slogan was "Church for the Rest of Us." And we were like, oh my gosh, all right, this church has got to be it. It's the slogan says it all. I think they'll accept us. We felt really good about it. And Katie was the worship pastor there. And so when we came out to the pastor, he was very, honestly, he was very calm about it.
Very cordial.
Yeah. Didn't judge us at all. Like, he just took a second to pause and think, and was like, I've always asked myself, what would I say if my daughter came out to me, and I think for him, it was very evident the call over our lives, individually and as a family unit.
Yeah.
And it was very hard for him to deny that call that we have. And so that, like, for him, it was, I don't want to see you not be part of the church because you have a call, but I don't think right now our church is ready to embrace a family like this. And so he encouraged us to look for an affirming church, and we came across the Lutheran Church, the Evangelical Lutheran Church of America. And for the most part, to a certain extent, they accept us. Katie,
the doctor mentioned, Dr. Eli mentioned about the possibility of people losing their jobs, and that's a real thing. And that's exactly what happened to me. That's how I made my livelihood. I was a worship pastor, and I sang and led music for a living. And what was interesting about that is just that the church embraced, it was even hard for them because I was a person of color entering their very, very white church. And, even that was a bit of a struggle. So then for them to kind of peel back the layers and eventually become so connected, to them, it was like they couldn't believe that this person that had come here helped them understand God and understand devotion and understand
and open up.
Yeah, and open up and vulnerability, because I was constantly pouring my heart out while I would sing. And not just in song, but like being vulnerable and sharing a lot about my life and sharing different experiences that I've had. And it was evident that the pastor knew that this is what I'm supposed to be doing with my life. When Raquel mentioned call, that's what she refers to. It's basically feeling that I'm supposed to be doing this. This is what I'm meant to do. This is my purpose. I'm supposed to help people connect back to God. And they couldn't deny any of that. But they just couldn't look past the fact that we're poly and that we were a different family dynamic. And so I was let go and then picked up by the Lutherans.
Yeah.
Who, I lost my job on a Tuesday, and by Friday I was having a meeting with who's now one of the bishops of the ELCA, and hired me on the spot, and said, no, come with us. We'll take you. And eventually created a position for me. I became their creative director. Yeah. So it was just like step by step, just trusting, not really sure what was going to happen. But we definitely felt that if I'm supposed to be light in the world, right? How am I keeping this thing that I love so much in the dark? How can I hide this thing that I know is light? So I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh no, you're giving me the Holy Ghost over here. Speaking, man.
It's what I do, brother.
We having church up in here.
Q, Ty, what about you guys? Does religion also play some type of role within you guys' relationship?
I know me. First off, I love y'all, the Triad family. Yes, I love y'all.
Definitely. Thank you.
Amazing. But I know I'm super religious. Like, I grew up in church. Like, every morning, like, I'm sure I probably almost get nervous. Like, I wake up in full like spiritual warfare. Like, I love the Lord. And so I know my church particularly, it's a Black church. It's a fairly large church with a wide range of people. I also don't know that if I were to really just come to church like, hey y'all, these are my two boyfriends, that everything would just go swimmingly. I know for me, my relationship with the Lord is something, personal to me. So I'll go to church and I don't necessarily, not that I'm hiding necessarily what we're doing, but I just don't, especially in that. And I think maybe too, because I'm not involved in the church. It's just, let me just come get my worship, let me get my praise and let me go. Cause I know I love my church and I think I would just hate, I would hate to be in a situation where they're just like, maybe this ain't the church for you. And I would hate to lose that. That's something I would really hate to lose. Is my church, my church relationship. So I know, and right now we're just closed for the pandemic. So I haven't really had to go to church. But I would bring them with me to church. But we may not make public announcements. But as a whole, we y'all can say what y'all think.
What about you and Martell? Oh, go ahead.
I also grew up in the church. So like I would say that I'm spiritual, very. I don't think I'm very religious, honestly, but I'm a very spiritual person. So like I have a church that I haven't been to in a while because I typically work both my jobs on Sunday. But yeah, like when I can, I go to my church, and I don't know, like I feel like if I took them to my pastor and was like, well, he already knows my husband, but and was like, these are my boyfriends, or this is my boyfriend, this is our boyfriend. I don't know, like I don't think he would necessarily have no type of reaction. But hey, yeah.
Gotcha. May I just say, you guys' dog is so docile. So he's just chilling and just enjoying just all the love.
Stressful, like we have to like keep him right here, otherwise he would finish the interview. Like they're talking to someone else.
So we kind of touched on this just a little bit, but I would love to just circle back around and get more in depth. Family. Have you, starting with Martell, Q, and Ty, have you introduced your parents to all three of you?
So my family does not live in Georgia, so they have yet to meet. I have a very big family, and when I say big, I mean so I was part of one of those children who my mom and my dad, they split when I was younger. So my mom married someone else, and then my dad married an amazing woman. I have an amazing relationship with my stepmother and her family. And so my grandparents, my mom and dad, their parents, they split too. So I had, multiple parents, multiple set of grandparents. So they haven't met everyone yet.
A lot of people to meet.
In total, I have 14 siblings, and I know that I know how my family is. So it's definitely something that I've personally broken down purposely into all right, you can meet these three people today, and we'll meet someone a couple months down the line, and then I know different siblings' personalities, so I gauge who meets who first. So they haven't met everyone yet.
Yeah, I know. Most of my family is out of town. So my immediate family, they're aware of them. They know what I'm doing. They just haven't had the opportunity to meet them. My dad, he's currently incarcerated, but he's in jail. He's been super excited. I can't wait to meet them. I'm just ready. He's been very encouraging, and I love. Ow, I love.
Did you send pictures?
Yes. Yeah.
Oh, Martell. Oh, he's excited.
They've met. Well, he's pretty much met everybody. I guess there is to meet in my family. Martell, he's met my mom, he's met my sister, he's met my brother. So he's starting to meet the family now as well.
Q, how did you explain who Martell was? How did you explain it to your mom? Did you say
well, I haven't really particularly expressed to her specifically that he's our boyfriend, but she knows. I know she knows. But
look at Skill.
Yeah, I haven't specifically expressed that to her verbatim like that, but yeah, everybody else. Yeah.
My mom and my siblings, like when I started posting pictures or started mentioning that me and Q were hanging around somebody, my mom called me on the phone and she was like, "Hey, who is this guy?" And I was like, "Oh, that's our friend." And she was like, "Is that your friend?" And I was like, "No, that's our boyfriend." And she was like, "Okay, I was just calling to confirm." And she literally got
And then that was her cue to get on the phone to all the other family members.
messages. Everybody was like, "So is this a thing now?" Like one of my close friends, she literally wrote me and was like, "I've been following this very close, and I felt this is what this was coming to." So at that point, it was just like everybody on my end, they love it.
They know. They're just so interested. Triad family, what about you? How did you explain to your family?
Oh, that was it was you know, why don't we start with your mom, Louis?
Sure.
Go ahead, share about mom.
Sure. Well, when Raquel came into the picture, my mom was my only living parent. My dad passed away in 2009. And yeah, when Raquel came into the picture, my mom was living with us, and just would see Raquel every weekend, every day, constantly at the house. Never once came up and said, "Hey, why is Raquel here so much? Why is Raquel, spending so much time with Katie?" Nothing like that. She just embraced Raquel always. And for the longest time, I never really sat and had that conversation with my mom. It wasn't until like last year, the year that she passed. She was getting very ill, and I just had this looming feeling up on me, like I need to talk to her about this. And when I did, it was just a weight just off of me. She was just so accepting, and she just told me, as long as you guys are happy, I'm happy for you. And she was just very, very accepting.
And I think having that that one parent, because we all came out to our families, and Katie's family did not take it very well. My family did not take it very well. And so just having that support and acceptance from Lewis's mom was so reassuring and healing, honestly. With my family, I think my mom always suspected, because Katie was always coming over. I lived with my parents at the time, and so Katie was always coming over, and my mom would be like, "Isn't she married? Like, doesn't she spend time with her husband? Like, why is she always here? Like, what is going on?" And at that time I was 21. I was not ready to come out to my mom and dad. Let alone we were still exploring our dynamic within the three of us.
Yeah,
and
we weren't sure what we were going to be.
Right. And so to me, it was just like, well, I don't even want to come out to my mom and dad right now. I just don't feel ready. And so I'd always deny it. My dad one day was like, "Katie's gay. I know it. I know she's gay, and if you stick around with her, you might turn gay." Yeah. And, in 2015, I moved out to move in with Katie and Louie. Coincidentally, at the same time, I was going to grad school here in Maryland. So it just kind of worked out. And it wasn't until 2017 where, I finally built up the courage. At that point, the three of us knew, all right, we're doing this for the long haul. Mm-hmm. We know we want to do life together, and let's do it. It's time to come out to our families. And I remember we invited my mom and dad over for lunch one day, and Katie had made a beautiful meal, and it wasn't even, cooking for them so that, oh, we cooked food for you so you could accept us. It was more just like, we wanted to have a meal with them, because that could have been the last meal that we shared together. And I was such an anxious mess, looking back at it now. Like, if I could redo how I came out to my parents,
it was bad, guys.
I wrote a letter to them. And it was like my heart was going to come out of my chest, that the moment they walked in, I sat them down and I read my letter. We hadn't even eaten the food that we spent the day cooking on. And
mind you, her parents live in Virginia, which is an hour away from us. So these poor people drove all the way here, walk through the door, and Raquel just hits them with it.
Blindsided.
It was word vomit. And I remember just like sitting on the couch, and my dad was sitting in a chair across from us. And I like, you know, I'm reading the letter to him and I'm seeing his face and he's kind of just processing it like, okay. And I finish reading my letter and my mom just stays quiet and she stays looking down at the floor, and my dad makes a joke and he goes, "What, are you guys Mormons now?" And we all start busting out laughing. And I think the joke just really triggered my mother. Because for her, it was like, this isn't a joke. Like, how are you doing this to, like, for her, Katie was the victim in her eyes. She was like, how are you doing this to Katie? You know, she went off on Lewis, saying words that I'd never heard my mom say, you know, like, and like my dad had to escort her out of the house and they left. Like, they weren't
She
even
was
here.
throwing stuff in our house, guys.
It was not a good scenario. And so, you know, it's taking, and we're still not at a place where I can say, oh my gosh, there's unity between my parents and my little family nucleus. Like, that's something that we're over here actively asking God for, you know, to just bring unity between our families, because that's really what we want to see.
Yeah.
And hopefully we see it in this lifetime.
We hope so.
But it's work, you know, having to heal and having to talk about it with them and not hide it, you know, and be confident about who I am and confident about my family dynamic when talking to my parents, because I also don't want to baby them and you know, give into their false narrative that I'm this single heterosexual woman, right? You know, because I think for them it's very hard to accept and to even state that, one, I'm a bisexual woman in a polyamorous relationship and that I'm a mother. So it's been a journey in that. And then when it comes to Katie's mom, you know, you can share that, babe.
I can speak. So with you know, I just have my mother. I lost my father in the 90s. So like I pretty much grew up with just my mom, and but we were a very tight-knit family. Again, we were very, very church oriented. And yeah, I think my family's estrangement happened way before them finding out that I was poly. Unfortunately for them, because we come from a fundamentalist background, like me wanting to wear pants was the reason why they stopped speaking to me, you know, because I like to drink on occasion. That's why they stopped speaking to me. So when I came out as poly, I mean, it didn't make much of a difference. You know, they were already estranged. They were already distant.
You were already the black sheep.
I was already kind of labeled as this lost individual. And I think it's not until now that I'm starting to see with my family just a shift. And I don't know what prompted it. I'd like to think that God is just doing the work, because I don't know how this happened, but my mother is coming around more. My mother is being nice to Raquel. They're texting each other to communicate, which is,
she told the dog I was family. You know, the dog was barking at me. I went to drop, I'm sorry to cut you off, mommy. The dog, I went to drop Lucas or pick him up from his grandma's house the other day, and the dog was barking at me, and she looked at the dog and she's like, "No, don't bark. Raquel is family." And like, just hearing that is just like, you know, going from, she couldn't even look at me. Would walk into the room and she would look down. I would say something to her and she would not even acknowledge me. And going from that to, here, I want to gift you these hand towels for the kitchen. Here, take a head of lettuce, you know. Bingo, or whatever her dog's name is. No, she's family. You know, just hearing that shift, it's, yeah, I can't help but also, you know, attribute that to, hey, God's doing a work. You know, God's shifting, and it's beautiful to see.
Yeah. I and like my older sister is also coming around. I just recently opened a studio for my business because I do production, and they were right there front and center to help me with everything. And these are people that have not spoken to me, not said one word to me. I don't know. I just feel very happy that this is finally happening. And again, I was gonna one of the things that I was going to say is I think that their fear was that I was going to be so lost and that I was going to be so far from God. And I think that them seeing how I'm just been persistent and saying, well, if the church will not accept me, well, then you know what? Then I need to build whatever thing it is that needs to happen, because I find it unfair that the queer community does not have spirit-led spaces that allow spiritual expression. It's unfair. And I've been looking, you know, and I've gone to a lot of these progressive churches like Lutherans and Methodist, some Methodist, UCC churches,
Presbyterian,
just the whole like kind of mainline church. Been there, and it's just not the same. The worship is not the same. People of color just express themselves a little differently. And I find it unfair that we don't have that space. And I think that my family, that is, seeing that I've been putting all my efforts, I've been putting all my resources. I make money, it goes into trying to build this thing that I feel called to. So yeah, I think that them just seeing that persistence, them seeing the growth in me as a person, overall, like being able to have these really hard conversations that in the past, I don't think I could have had with them without lashing out. And now just being able to say, I understand that you're just doing what you think is best, and giving them the space and giving compassion instead of anger because they don't get me. I don't know. I think it's shifted the way that they see me. And I mean, I guess it's kind of allowed the space to see the changes.
Oh, wow. That is awesome, guys. Again, thank you so much. Triad family, Ty, Martell, Q. Thank you guys so much for joining us. Dr. Eli, oh my gosh, round of applause for you and your research. Thank you so much. Before we go, just two quick questions. Dr. Eli, starting with you, what is your advice to couples or an individual person who's thinking about entering or creating a throuple?
I think it's always easier to think, oh, I would like multiple partners. I could totally get down with that person and that person. But thinking about your partner with other people is the harder part. So stepping back to make room for their individual interactions, which I hear both of these triads have done, made room for each other's kind of individual interactions, 2-on-2. That's so smart. I gotta say, both of these triads have made such good choices. Their selective disclosure coming out, that was so smart, and they've nailed it, these two. You did a great job finding guests, Nigel, of awesome families to be on here. Yeah, you all.
Thank you. I'm not going to ask you guys the same question because I feel like you pretty much gave your advice through this entire segment. But I do want to ask you, each of you answer, you know, being in your relationship, what did you learn about yourself as an individual and being in this throuple? And we'll start with Martell. Well, yeah, we'll start with Ty and work all our way up.
I learned that I personally always have a lot to say. I know I've been like shy and all that, but I know with them two, I have a lot to say and I can be very vocal. And at times it can come off like, I don't know, a little aggressive, but that's just the way I speak. So I've just learned in, you know, picking and choosing on, you know, what topics to speak on or thinking of how I say things. Cause, you know, I can say something to Martell and he can receive it one way, and I can say it the same way to Q and it be taken differently. So I've just learned, you know, within myself to be very selective on what I say and how I say it.
I love that. Martell.
For me, it was weird. I don't feel like I'm honestly the perfect boyfriend. And they laugh, but it's true. But I think what I have learned in this really is just about people in general. Watch your mouth. It's just about people in general. Just I think the different dynamics of people. I know if you also haven't noticed, I also suffer from a slight narcissistic personality disorder. I love me and everything about me in my life. And I haven't really been able to see other people in a way that I've seen them. And they've really just kind of just opened my eyes just in the world, or even how I see other people now. There's other people in the world besides me. And having my 2 boyfriends has shown me that. And that's probably the greatest gift of all.
That's amazing. Q, how are you going to follow up, man?
For me, I had to learn, or I am learning still, to express myself more. So Bay likes to do a lot of talking. I don't like to express myself. And it's something that I've been dealing with forever, really. And so just learning how to navigate into that, how to actually open up and I don't like to feel vulnerable. So allow myself to feel vulnerable and, yeah. So that's what I've learned, or I am learning to do.
Awesome. Okay, starting with you. Raquel.
Sure. I learned that I got issues. No, I think it's just I've learned a lot about myself and the blind spots that I have, because I not only have one person to call me out, but I've got 2, and that was hard, hard constantly hearing what I need to work on. And so I think for me, it was just learning a lot of self-awareness and learning techniques to self-soothe, learning techniques to de-stress, or to help myself be at a better place, so that be my best self for not only myself and my kid, but for them as well, for my family. So I think it's been a lot of inner work for me, and like what I've been learning. Yeah.
I guess I've just learned just how to be a little bit more compassionate, especially being in this dynamic. We get a lot of hate. And I have to remember that people only know what they know, and they don't know what they don't know. And just having compassion for others, having compassion for my partners. I set pretty high expectations, not just for myself, but for those around me, especially my partners. It's just, something that I think I've had to really kind of take back, like not really set those expectations on people, because they're not, it's not their expectations to meet, they're mine. And it's unfair of me to expect people to meet them. Do you know what I mean? So just having more compassion, I think, is something that for them, for myself, and for others that don't get this type of dynamic. I think that's what I'm learning.
Awesome.
For myself, I feel like I've learned, again, how to better communicate the things that I need, or my needs. I'm a person that needs a lot of space, to myself, or just, quiet time, quietness around me. And, learning to express that, to communicate that better, has definitely been something I've been learning a lot throughout this process.
Awesome, guys. Thank you so much. I just want to do a quick wrap up. Dr. Eli, you have your new book, correct? Tell us about it really quickly.
New book, Children in Polyamorous Families. That's on Amazon. You can find that. Also, if you are not sure if consensual non-monogamy would work for you or not, consider taking the test that I developed with some collaborators. The Bonding Project helps you figure out if you want to bond 1-to-1, 1-to-many, many-to-many, or solo. And you can find that at thebondingproject.com.
Awesome. And Martell, Q, Ty, do you guys have anything coming up?
Well, other than again us moving this weekend, listen, I don't want to buy no more furniture. I want to buy nothing else. Like if we ain't got it, we don't need it. But me personally, I'm a music artist. I'm an actor. I'm a brand ambassador. So I actually have a single. I have a single out right now. Yes, Flex. You can find it on all social media platforms. Just type in Marto Star in all your music digital searches, and you will find me. You'll hear all my music. It's super wonderful. I actually have new music coming out starting in April and moving on to the rest of the year. So super excited and super busy and tired. We just filmed a reality show recently. So there's a lot of things just coming up.
Awesome. And the Triad fam. You guys have anything coming up?
You could follow us on Instagram. I mean,
thetriadfam.com.
Oh yeah, we do have the triadfam.com that we have a blog. We've posted a lot of our experiences there. But mainly, yeah, just through Instagram and on our website, thetriadfam.com.
Awesome. And they have a beautiful little boy, guys. He is
believe me, we love him. Obsessed with him, really.
And he knows it.
All right, Dr. Eli, the Triad fam, Martel, Q, and Ty, thank you all for joining us for our 8th episode. This has been amazing. Make sure all of you viewers check us out for episode 9 next week. We will be doing an episode on my life with HIV, where we will be interviewing one person who goes through getting HIV and didn't want it. It was forced upon him, and now he has to move forward. We will also be interviewing a second person who is a part of the gifting and chaser community within HIV, where they're sexually aroused for having unprotected sex with people with HIV. So make sure you tune in next week at 7 p.m. Central Standard Time on April 1st. Again, thank you for joining us for Outspoken, and make sure you stay outspoken. Good night.